to stream. I hope you guys can hear us now. And share screen. Okay, so what?
Got an echo.
have discomfort of things happening slowly. Sometimes it just surprises us and we need to adapt. Is there anything else that comes to your mind when you think about change?
Maybe because sometimes it's inevitable. We cannot control it, so we don't like what we can control.
The only thing constant in life is change.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And those who said that you like that was dramatic. Why do you like change? What makes you enjoy it?
Breaks the routine.
Breaks the routine. Adrenaline lover here. Who else was?
It could bring something better than you have in your life right now.
Uh-huh. There is a chance of making things better. Is there anything else that makes us change? Have you ever changed anything in your life? Probably you did. And I think that even though changes require effort, even though they break our routines, even when they are hard, uh, as you said, they happen very much anyway. Some of them are forced on us, like puberty, and some of them happen because we choose to do something. Actually, the change is the process that allows us to be someone else today than we were yesterday. When we dream about something, when we have any kind of goal, it requires change. Like the difference between the you of today and you of tomorrow is all of the changes and decisions you will make to make those changes possible. Like there will be no fulfillment, there will be no you of tomorrow without the changes you will implement. And sometimes those changes are hard. They are messy. And I know, and not only because I'm a psychologist, but also because I made a lot of decisions that actually made things very messy for some time. I went through from being working as a therapist in an outpatient clinic to working with data, from working in academia to working for corporate for some time. I went from living in my hometown to moving 1,000 kilometers away, and currently I work in Luxembourg. So there was leap after leap after leap, and it was not easy. Uh, it was educating, it was thrilling at times, but it was far from easy. And I think that many times something is not working here. Oop, yes. And many times we are very tempted to see change as this, as a straight line from A to B. And usually when we go with our initial plan, this is it. Like, I want to be a data scientist. I want to be a developer. I want to learn this or that. I want to go there. And after some time and hard negotiations with ourselves, we are sometimes able to acknowledge the fact that the change has some ups and downs. But when I'm thinking about all the changes that happen in my life and that I observed in many people I worked with and I know, if I would like to summarize changes in graphical form, I would rather go with this. Because I don't know what is your experience, but in mine, it's usually 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 4 steps forward, 10 steps back. And you hesitate and you don't know. And it's the anxiety. Have I made the right decision? Does it really put me on the right path? And what do I actually want? And that's one of the examples when actually you realize that questions we ask are way more important than the answers we give. Because questions like, what do I want to do with my life, is a question that will be with you probably forever. The answer will change, but the question stays. And because the question stays, actually it puts us in a position to acknowledge one very crucial element for all the changes, and it's the person asking the question. And I think in many ways, and in fact many times, we tend to see ourselves through the lens of the roles we currently have. And I think it's especially pronounced in people who are career changers, like myself. I currently also mentor and coach people, women in data. And I see that a lot, that especially for those who I had already some kind of career, spent a few years working as someone in some role, they educated themselves as particular professional, and then they're changing their careers. It's sometimes very hard to see what of what you know and what of who you are actually can be translated, can be transferred to this new role that you want, that you crave. And for me also, it took me a lot of time to realize how my clinical skills are useful in a corporate environment and working with clients, for example. How my academic skills can be leveraged in data science, that's actually easier. But there was also this struggle of not only what I do, but also in a way who I am, meaning that we define ourselves through the roles. So when we change the role, there's always this question, one of the many questions that probably we ask ourselves throughout whole life. Like, what's the core? What I carry from one situation from another, from 1 year to the next, what I want to leave and what I need to drop. And sometimes, and I'm not talking about deep identity crisis, although it may happen, but I think that we create ourselves also with every choice that we make. And sometimes when we do those changes, it's hard to see that in a way that there is nothing like that would be a redundant knowledge, that would be useless. There's no experience you have that is useless and that is not transferable. I know that it's a buzzword right now, transferable skills. Yeah, call your friends from HR. It's a thing. But actually, I think that every skill and everything you know is transferable. You carry it everywhere and you can leverage it everywhere, as long as you will keep yourself open and not open and flexible. Because roles make us rigid. I'm a data scientist now. I need to think in this way. This is how I solve problems. This is how I work. This is how I should approach things. But I think that creativity is actually one of the biggest superpowers people have. Adaptability made us who we are. We can survive on any environment on this planet. not because we are set in our ways. On the contrary, as long as there are other people, usually, we can survive everywhere. So when I think about skills that I'm using right now at my current job, and as a reminder, I work as a data scientist for a health company. I actually think that what I'm using most are not really my academic skills or my psychological skills or not even my data related skills. But actually, what helps me most is what I learned uh, as an archer, because that's my favorite sport. I dig archery. I really recommend it to everybody. But I've never learned so much about staying focused, staying on target, and how details matter that in any other setting than the archery practice. And what is also kind of magical for me in archery is that it's actually a set of very well synchronized and elegant movements that put you on the right track. So if you prepare your background work, if you take care of the form that you have, then basically hitting the target is just a natural consequence of how you are, how you move your body, how you breathe. So when things are hectic sometimes, when there's pressure, breathing and staying on target really helps a lot. And believe me, I'm all about rush. I'm a bit hyperactive. If I can walk, I will run. If I can do something today, I will do everything to do it yesterday. And this moments of focus, this is something that I have never achieved before I tried that archery. So there is no redundant skill. There's no thing that you learn or know that you cannot use. The question is, will you be willing to and will you be open enough to do it? And we have this tendency in our minds to do, I think it's kind of a cultural thing also, that we are somehow, maybe, maybe it's, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, if you feel that too, um, that it's very hard to stop sometimes. We are rushed. There is pressure to learn things quickly. There is pressure to achieve goals quickly. There is, competition is waiting. We need to do it now. And I think that also, when people are learning new skills, when they are changing their careers, they want to learn everything at once. They want to learn everything as soon as possible. And they are in like 3 boot camps at once because they want to hit their target as soon as possible. But I think that it's extremely important, as we were talking about before, and time itself does not change anything. But because things happen in time, it's good to take ownership of your own time because you are the only person that actually masters it. So giving yourself time to think, giving yourself time to learn, giving yourself time to make mistakes, to go those 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, and even give yourself time to feel lost sometimes. Give yourself time to have questions, not to have answers. And this is also something that I kind of learned through archery, that I don't need to master everything at once. That every training can be used to master only one element, only one part of the movement. That I don't need to have all the answers at once, and that the fact that I'm in a process is actually a learning experience by itself. So I think what we tend to do is we rush in our minds. And even though it's very, it's important to have a goal, we tend to sometimes focus too much on what is forward than on what we have. Because as I said, there is no experience and there is no knowledge that is useless. So having this awareness of what I can do, of what are my strong points and weak points, on what I've learned from whom, and how I can carry it further, it's actually the biggest uh, lesson that I've learned. And there is, and when I say that there is no useless knowledge, the question is what to choose. What should I learn? What skills are actually valuable? And here I have an answer that might be surprising actually, because I'm a natural born hedonist. So my answer is learn what is curious, learn what is interesting to you. Because if you will put your curiosity at work, it will do something magical almost. And this actually comes from research. There was a neuroscientist, biologist, Ansa, and he was investigating emotions in mammals, and he discovered that in the brain a network that is responsible for seeking behaviors. So if we would translate it more into human terms, it's a network that's responsible for triggering curiosity. And what is very interesting, what happens when an animal or human starts to be curious, interested about something, it not only narrows our attention and helps us focus on the thing, it also alleviates something that usually keeps us away from things. Curiosity has this magical way of alleviating anxiety. So, in a way, if you want to become fearless, you should become curious. So, whenever something seems to be a little scary, actually, one of the easiest interventions for it is to try to awaken your own curiosity. And it really does work. Because if you think about it, we really are a species of explorers, crossed oceans, went through, north and south everywhere because we were curious. I think that most of the inventions we have are actually built on our curiosity. We wanted to see how things work. We wanted to see how things are. We wanted to make sense of the world or of ourselves. And if you think about it, many of the technology or I don't know, medicine, anything, architecture that we have, all the progress that we've made throughout time was built on our flexibility and curiosity. So we have this as a natural tendency. The question is, will we be able to use it, and will will we decide to use it? Because I think that we often put curiosity in the children's section. Adults are all about business. We just need to do what we need to do. And we miss a lot of fun because of that. And I think that here comes kind of my advantage, because I suck at doing things that I'm supposed to do. But I'm very good at doing things that I'm curious about. So for me, that's actually the only way to go. If something's boring, eh, thanks, maybe next time. It's not my thing. But we are also more than our heads. And I said a bit about archery and how it affected me, and how it helped me to put certain things in order. And I think we have this tendency to see ourselves only as heads, especially when you talk to people who work a lot with computers in IT. When we solve problems that are pretty abstract, we tend to forget that we have bodies. And I think that to be able to perform any kind of change, we need to remember that we have those bodies, because they make us capable. And if you want to work on confidence, doing sports is something that often helps. But it's not only about making the body capable, but it's also something that's also a story about being gentle with this body in a way, and taking care of it in a proper way. Because I think that every one of you has the experience of not being able to think if you're hungry, of having headaches when you did not drink enough water every day. These are simple things, but having certain habits and having certain mm, structure when it comes to taking care of this vessel is actually something that can help us go through pretty tough changes in life. Because if you think about our days, meals give it structure. They are also for us an occasion to socialize, but they are also a moment of pleasure. So even when you think about such a simple thing like getting nourishment, it is actually something that affects us on every possible level you can imagine. And uh, we have minds with bodies, but we are also social beings. And we underestimate that very often, because when we think about change, we are very often focusing on what is my goal, what I need to do. But because changes are messy, and because they are often prompting anxiety, um, we actually need very often need support, and we need people on our team to help us. And there is also a very scientifically proven reason for that. There's one research done by John James One and his team, and that's my one of my favorite experiments and one of my favorite papers. One because it involves neurology, and it involves electrocuting people, so the best that psychology has to offer. And so the study design was that they put people in a scanner and they were electrocuting people, and they were checking how their brains work when they are being electrocuted. As you can imagine, this is not a pleasant situation, quite stressful. One being in a tube is not fun. If anybody was ever having a body scan, you know that it's not a pleasant experience. And then you also have this information that you will be electrocuted at some point. And there were three experimental conditions. So one was people were alone in the room when it happened. And the second, people were there with a stranger holding their hand. And then the third, people were there with a loved one, with someone who they trusted, with someone with whom they had high quality relationship. And the goal of the study was to check how the brain works when we are stressed, anxious, when something bad happens to us. Because it was assumed that being electrocuted was particularly pleasant. And they were looking for the brain areas that are active when social support happens. So they were looking for a particular network or a structure in the brain that becomes active when people receive social support. And they were surprised with the findings because they discovered that when people were being electrocuted, but they were at the same time held by their hand by a loved one, like someone they trust and cherish, and the other way around, someone who is actually involved with them, the bond is strong. The networks and the structures in the brain that are responsible for fear and anxiety, stress, in some of the subjects, they were not active at all. The brain was calm. They felt safe, even in the circumstances of theoretically being in a stressful situation. Those who were in a room with a stranger showed certain stressful reactions when it comes to their brains. And those who were alone in the room showed the most activation of fear and anxiety-related networks. So it really is important, whatever we are going through, to have on our team people who hold our hand. And it really doesn't, if you think about it, it's not that much because those people were not each other. No, it was just the presence, and that was enough. So whenever you're thinking about any kind of change, even it doesn't matter if you're thinking about it in a retrospect or if you are planning something right now that it's going to be new and challenging for you, think who might be worth inviting on this journey, who could hold your hand, because we are social beings. Thousands of years of our evolution made us social beings, and we actually are better when we are in a proper social setting. If we have others that support us, if we have others that are able to give us emotional support, we perform better at almost anything you can imagine. And are there any plant lovers here? It's a thing right now, isn't it? Like, and if you think about it, we really are a lot like plants, with one very huge difference. Because and the difference is in how we approach ourselves. Because just like plants, we need sunlight, nutrients, water. Uh, we need to be in a proper environment to bloom and to grow. So when the plant is not doing well, it's very clear for anybody, even for those who do not like plants that much or do not know about them too much. It's very clear that you put it in the wrong place. You overwatered it. You're not taking care of the plant properly, so it's dying. And I know I'm a master when it comes to that. If you would ever like to kill a plant, I'm your person. 100% effectiveness. I'm not doing too well there. But my dog is alive and kicking, so I'm better in the mammal department. But my point is that when we think about ourselves and when we think about the reasons why things are not going too well for us, we are very good at saying that I'm not good enough. I'm not trying hard enough. And the same with others. When sometimes our close ones are not performing, let's say, as we would want them, or at work, in any environment we can think of, if people are not doing what we would like them to do, it's very clear for us that it's their fault. And I'm not saying that, okay, it's good to take ownership and responsibility. Of course, we are assuming that the person is doing what they should. But we are very good at assigning even blame sometimes to the person, neglecting what surrounds them. And we do it to ourselves too. So next time you will be planning a change or you will be thinking about how you are actually doing when it comes to the goal you set up for yourself, think about how much water you give yourself, how much nutrients, how much sunlight, but also think if you are in the proper environment to grow. Because sometimes it's impossible to bloom in certain places or in certain groups. And I think it's very important to choose wisely where we put ourselves in the world. So it's not only who I am, who I want to be, what goals I want to achieve, but also where do I put myself and why. Is this place that I'm about to choose for myself is actually helping me? So changes are like ogres and onion. They have layers. I know any Shrek fans here. I'm a huge one, but I prefer the donkey. That's I think clear. So I think that this, whenever you will be thinking about any new thing that you want to put in front of you, any goal, any change, do it. Yes, go for it. Await your curiosity and try. Try and fail. Go those 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. But be sure that while you are doing it, you give yourself time, that you take care of yourself in the right way, that you have proper people on the team, and that you are in the right place. Because this is like every other journey. It's good to check if the weather will be good. It's good to take proper shoes. And it's good to go for a hike with people that you know and you trust. So, fingers crossed. Thank you. Remarks,
How and why did you move to data science and away psychology?
I did not move away from psychology, as you could hear. I actually right now am embracing everything. So I'm kind of combining. And if you think about it, like data, very often, especially the health data that we're working with right now, they're just another way of talking about behavior. I'm just not using words, I'm using numbers to describe it. So it was for a long time, I really thought, I know, like, for a long time, I thought that I moved from psychology to data science. I thought that I'm no longer a psychologist, I'm a data scientist now. And I discovered at some point that it limits my thinking, that it actually makes me stuck in many ways, that I'm wasting a lot of potential that I have as a data scientist, actually. So I moved from um, psychology to data science because I fell in love with data analysis during my PhD studies. I had an amazing methodology and statistics data analysis professor because during my PhD studies I had a 2 years advanced course on it. And it was amazing. Like, wow, really? So it actually led me to go for a bootcamp, and one thing led to another. Then I decided that I would do more and I would learn more. So I followed my curiosity and I decided to take a break from psychology and I went to work for asset management company. So I worked in finance as an analyst. But then I realized that, oh, yeah, what I said before, that actually I have all of this background from clinical work and from scientific work and then in clinical psychology that I can actually combine both. And this is why I'm right now in the company that I'm in, where I sort of combine all of the skills that I have. There are some left that I'm using, so that's probably for next week. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to know more. That's my job. With I just go with what seems interesting.
We might have time for a last question. Just ask your question. What if you are too curious and you want to jump and try too many things and then you end up not ending or truly feeling any of them because you just start too many changes and too many things at the same time?
Define too many.
Well, too many to continue to really make the proper change.
Well, I would say that it's really, well, I don't think you can have too much of curiosity, really, because at some point you will be more inclined to do A than to do B. So I think that in many times, really, it happens organically. And also in terms of environments we are in, some things are easier to explore in certain environments. So I think that this um, decision, this choice actually happens in a way by itself in many times. And if it doesn't, I think that we are coming back to the body thing because body tells you if you're tired. You will feel that you're tired. You will feel that you're exhausted. You will feel that you don't want to do those things. You will start to procrastinate. And then uh, if you procrastinate one thing with the other, uh, that might be a hint. So uh, deep down inside, I believe that we can do everything, just not always at the same time. So maybe it's just a matter of prioritizing and that will not be scientific, but works for me. Gut feeling, which is probably just my hedonism speaking for itself. Like, I like this now.
Great. Thanks a lot. Welcome, Asiya.
Do you want to use your laptop or mine?
Fine.
You would like? Are you in a StreamYard? Because you need to connect to a StreamYard as well. Okay. Oh, I can share, and if you want, I can. I have your presentation, and you can. Okay. So let me first share in Zoom. Okay, share screen. Okay, where is the slideshow? Okay, so we have that in Zoom, but now I need to. Yeah, sorry.
Can I use this one?
I'm afraid not.
It's working? Okay,
It's not
no worries.
working. If you what you have the.
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Asiya. I'm a data engineer from Research Collective, and today I will guide you through the journey of image background removal service, building it and putting it to production. This talk will consist of 4 parts. First, we will talk about Research Collective data team. Then we will dive to background removal in Research Collective, the initial setup, and what we propose as a new solution to implement. Then in the third part, we'll talk about the implementation. Mainly we will cover the machine learning model and API architecture. And we will finish by service launch, integration, and make results up to date because we are still in the software. So let's go. Who we are. The Star Collective is a marketplace for pre-loved fashions that was built in 2009. In 2021, it was a big year for us. We acquired the core label and we became a unicorn. And now today we count over 800 employees, over 11 hubs, and one part of this big team is data team that consists of 3 main pillars. So it's analytical engineering. It's the part where we focus on data storage, ETL pipelines, and infrastructure to host it. Data science and engineering, it's the team where we work on building and putting in scale predictive models for business needs. And data product where we focus on product team needs, supporting tech solutions. There we also work on on-site tracking and very new features experiments such as A/B testing. Myself, I'm working with data science and engineering team together with Aurelien and Saskia, who are here today. So during the network session, don't hesitate to person. Saskia is our data science lead, and Aurelien is data scientist who worked on the project and is the main brain behind the myself, I was in the data engineer role in this project, having 6 years of experience in e-commerce, beauty, and cosmetics industry. Today I built ETL pipelines for building training websites. I also work hands-on designing and implementing microservices to have ML models for business purposes, and also work on optimization of infrastructure to serve. So let's go closer to the main topic of this talk, background removal in Research Collective. As you know, in e-commerce, it's quite a well-known fact that customers pay a lot of attention
to the type of images, quality of images of the products, and maybe they also use it as a main driver behind their decision to have a potential purchase. So in the Stir Collective, we sell luxury goods. It means that we want to also replicate the look and feel of luxury products on our platform, and the launch will have such it as well. We also know that it removes distraction, and not only for customers, but also for our authentication team who specializes on removing fake products from the platform. Basically. So consistency and image quality, as well as better environment for assessment of color and materials through imaging, is also a big for this year and a big motivation behind just deploying background removal technique. The initial setup of background removal was the next. So you can see on the schema the pipeline of images throughout the Stir environment to the item being published. So first, the seller fulfills the deposit form and uploads the images. They go through the deposit pipeline down to the first step, that is AI-powered fitting provider. In the initial setup, it was an external provider, so we pay certain cost per image to base the background show. As soon as it's done, it comes back to the deposit pipeline and goes through the check. It's also quite costly operation in terms of money and time. For time, we have people working manually on something. It's really costly, and there is a certain chance that with our AI-powered provider, we can have some artifacts still left on the background. So in this case, we need to do manual clipping. It's also another external provider that helps us with this task, and we use this step as ground truth, meaning that in any case, after going through manual clipping, we have good images good enough to be published on the platform. As soon as material gets published, the buyers can see and purchase. So basically, this is a pipeline, and it describes the time from deposit to publish. There are certain pain points in this pipeline, and you can see in the red color, we have everything that is related to manual check. So basically, it's the main bottleneck where we spend money and time. We also have certain situations with images that are not well taken from the right angle. For example, in this case, our AI clipping provider, external one, can just reject this image, it won't process it, so the image goes directly to manual clipping. And what we think could be improved here in terms of business objectives is reduction of cost per image. So there are at least 3 points where we can act on that and reduce MCR. What is MCR? It's the main metric that we will use across this project. It is the manual clipping rate. So essentially, it's just a percentage of images that by some reason goes through manual clipping. Right. Taking into account these pain points and objectives business-wise, we decided to give a proposal of a new service or new setups that will aim to resolve these problems under technical constraints. So among the constraints, we have business objectives, so reduction of the cost and reduction of MCR. And also we want to replicate more or less the same availability of the service, latency, and so on. And we don't want to spend on this project very long time, means that we have an objective of fast delivery. It means that we need to take this into account when we work on the system design in terms of integration. We want to make it fast, plug and play. What is the approach that we use to get there with the new architecture? We decided to propose an in-house clipping service that will be essentially a microservice hosted on Kubernetes cluster. We also wanted to train it on VC data, so the Stir Collective data, internal data means that, for example, third-party solutions that are adapted for various types of images, such as landscapes, such as detecting, for example, pedestrians on the street and so on. It's not really our use case. We want our model to be adapted to our use case, that is discuss luxury goods products on the product page. And the last thing is we decided to take into account the current architecture of the third-party provider and use more or less the same input and output interface from upstream and downstream to have the same service. In this case, we just replace it at this step. As quite often happens, it's not the only one solution that is correct or right, so we consider different options in each step. So, for example, for hosting and storage, we ask ourselves why not just go with SageMaker. So Listener Collective works with AWS services a lot. So SageMaker is one of them that is basically a machine learning platform that is adapted for training, test, validation, and also serving of machine learning models. So if we already have more or less on the shelf solution, we're not using this. One of our objective was to reduce the cost of the service, and SageMaker effort is really well done, but it costs much more than just hosting an API or Kubernetes cluster instances. So here we decided to go with the first one. Then it's not so an API essentially is a kind of a sequential part of a system, meaning that we send a request and then we wait for the response from API. So the reason alternative for this is synchronous ways to do the same processing in parallel. It is just to send the images to a and then process it through the worker. So in this case, we don't need to wait for the response. However, one of our objectives was as well fast delivery. It means that we need to take into account the architecture that was before and more or less replicate it to go faster. And it means that if you want to go with the broker solution, we also need to make changes in the upstream service, in the service that we send the request. That's not what we want to do right now, but we discussed it and we keep it right now as one of the solutions for the next step, so for the next version of the service. And integration mode. When we develop a new service, we want also to care about a failure mode or safety net, something that will help us to improve the stability of the service and switch quickly if we have some problems. One of the ideas that naturally comes here, if we have already an external service that is capable to do the job very well, why not to do the next setup? We branch in our new service, and in case it fails, we reroute the request to the previous service that can do another run on the image and try to do the job. But if we look closer to this kind of integration, we will see that to make a decision, if we want to go through this double check or not, we need to do a manual operation step one more time, so manual check. Manual check is one of the operations that once again costs in terms of money and time a lot. So if we consider, for example, that our in-house service and the previous service that was already in place have more or less the same performance, the difference, so the amount of images that we need to run through additional check is not very big. However, we will pay a lot in terms of time and money process. Does it really work? Maybe not. However, the idea of failure mode is really an interesting one, so we keep it in mind further to implement it in a different way, not through this set of bytes, just approach it differently. So let's have an overview of implementation starting from the architecture of the machine learning model. So the model behind this service is UTNet or UNet version of it. It's a model that is capable to process high-resolution images with a really fast processing time, and it focuses on extracting macro and micro features from high-resolution images. It's really the case that we have here. On this kind of performance, the performance of the model was judged by a performance score on edges. So for background removal tasks, edges is the essential part where we can have mistakes. So if we manage to have a good score on edges, everything else should be fine. The training set consists of 20,000 hand-labeled images, so it's internal images from the stair, and their size is 320 pixels, and the format is PNG. The format was also important for us because in background removal tasks, what's important is to distinguish foreground and background, and if you have explicit difference between them in terms of layers, it's easier. Imagine you have, for example, a T-shirt of a white color on a white table. With this certain contrast, you can have the same color of pixels within the T-shirt and in the background. So to distinguish them better for the model, for training, it's better to use PNG. Then we also highlight here the post-processing steps that is important. Once we computed the mask, we need to upscale it from 300 pixels back to the original size and apply it to the original image to cut the background off. So in this case, while upscaling, we can have different artifacts appearing, meaning that, for example, some artifacts that was of a very small scale, it gets extended, gets stretched. So specifically, there is some such problem as stair-step effect on edges, and there are various techniques quite sophisticated to get rid of it and make the picture appear not synthetic, but really as if it was just a photograph on the white background. So this is kind of a vast subject, and if you're interested in more details, I invite you to follow our Vestiaire Connected tech blog post on tech blog on Medium, where Roland will post quite soon a very detailed article on the machine learning part overall, and with big focus on post-processing. To finish on this part, the main test stack for machine learning architecture was PyTorch. It was trained on Amazon SageMaker. However, it was not authentic. Coming closer to the API, it is a web service built on API framework with big enhancement of type input identity. It has a single endpoint, post endpoint for inference that runs through each request 4 steps. The first one is pre-processing, so we need to downsize the input image down to the size that is compatible with the model, so 300 pixels and convert it to tensor. Then we apply the inference in Torch and post-process, so it's upscaling mask, refining edges, and applying the mask, so cutting out the background. Then we also centering crop. It's kind of an optional step, but we use it for this platform. It makes the pictures nicer. And the fourth step here is not so much for the inference as for us to improve the service in future. It's the computation of algometrics such as foreground and background ratio and confidence ratio in terms of how probable it is that this pixel belongs to the background or to the foreground. The latency breakdown of the steps is the next, as you can see in Datadog's ones. So let's say the inference takes from 70 to 80% of the whole processing time in usual conditions when we have a image of an average size and we don't have a really high spike of traffic. This is a setup that we have for one server, and then once it's done, we package it with Docker and deploy on a Kubernetes cluster with configuration. Here I want to step aside a little bit and talk about Kubernetes. So Kubernetes, just for a reminder, it's an app orchestrator. So we have one server setup and we want to have a big scale in terms of serving. We're ready to receive a really high traffic. We want to replicate our application in several copies. But what happens next when we want to maintain it, when we have some problems, for example, one copy is unhealthy, so it is down, we need to relaunch it. When we have some tasks as scaling, we need to scale up because today is, I don't know, Friday and everybody wants to post their new products online. This kind of things we cannot really manage manually. So in this case, we will use this thing, such thing as Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is an open source system to manage replicas of containers at scale. It has a master control plane that will manage all those pain points for you, and you can just improve the scale. In Vestiaire Collective, we work with AWS, so we work on Elastic Kubernetes service. The main feature of Elastic Kubernetes service is basically the same principle, but for virtual machines, we use EC2 instances. What we need to know here for this talk about EC2 instances is that there are 2 types of them. First one is on-demand instance. It's when you have a certain request of CPU and memory, you ask for it and you get it for a full time. Another type of instance is the spot instance. So it's a temporary resource that is given to you to do some computation. But for example, you don't want to train a model on spot instance because it can get cut from you at any time. However, there is an advantage such as nice price that is lower than for on-demand instances. So once we implemented the one server setup, we decided to load test it on Kubernetes with default parameters. Load test was done with Apache Bench Engine, and the conditions of the request per second is 5 minutes duration of the test. And the first step, the first line here in the table, is the initial implementation that performed really bad. So if you work with production, you know that 15 to 20 seconds per request is really horrible. It's not production ready at all. It's something that we want to improve. We started to work with it, transferring all the steps of processing within the endpoint call to async. So with Python, it's quite tricky. So we used kind of async wrapper to make them run in different threads. It helped a little bit, but we are still not there. We are around 7 to 10 seconds per request. We also increased the number of pods running, and then we found out that probably testing in pre-production environment is not really adapted for our use case because we wanted to find out if we are capable to repeat the same behavior as we have at third-party provider. So we needed to test it on something stable. However, pre-production environment in Vistera runs on spot instances. So for us, it was not optional. We decided to move from spot instances to on-demand, so we have a stable infrastructure, and then we can test different configurations for our web service. We're almost there, but we need some more improvements. So we go to the third step, where we start to play around with infrastructure configuration. Since that we tried mainly about the number of pods, and then we realized also that most of the applications and default configuration of the cluster for those application is done for text processing or for numbers processing, not really for media heavy applications. Here we work a lot with images. It means that the memory will be keeping those images for some time. Plus, we have quite a heavy model for the inference. So we need to increase the memory requests that we have in terms of resources. We've done that, and we also fine-tune the amount of resources that we require, both CPU and memory, to make it available for the player. The next thing that we tried is to have a workaround on inference. We've seen previously in Datadog spans that inference takes around 70 to 80% of all the time. So if we manage to improve the inference time, we can improve the overall latency for the response. So we decided to go with model compilation. The package that was used is OpenRhino. It helps to convert a torch model to some intermediate state, something between machine code and Python that runs faster and is much lighter in terms of weight. So, for example, for instance, the models that we have here was around 200 megabytes in torch representation, and in OpenRhino version, it's almost twice lighter. And the last step that we done here was to store the model in Docker image. So we care here not only about the latency of request processing time, but also the latency of scaling. So each time when we have not enough resources, we start to spin up inputs, but this time of spinning up is also the time when we will still receive a big traffic and we will have high increase of latency. So we want to minimize the time that we will spend for spinning up checkpoints. Having a model stored in the Docker image helps us to go faster with this way. So overall, it will also impact our average latency. Now we are at about 1.5 seconds per request. That is quite good. We can work with that. We decided not to stop on that and go even further, dig into the model itself and see how we can improve that. So there is one of the steps in the model inference that is called test time augmentation. So it's basically the same thing as data augmentation, but it's done in inference. So imagine you have one image coming through, and instead of just applying inference and returning the result, you multiply it by 3 or 4, and you apply different transformations to it. You can stretch it, you can pivot it, you can do some other transformations with it, and then you apply the inference on all those images, aggregating them in the end, and achieving better results. It really boosts the performance, but it's a step that requires some time, some additional time, meaning that instead of processing one image, we will process 3, 4, 5 images at a time. So it really impacts the latency as well. And removing the step from the inference, we can go down to 800 milliseconds at average. That is a result that is comparable to the latency of the benchmark service, third-party service. We achieved a good result in terms of the setup. However, we decided to go back to the step 3, where we have 1.5 seconds. However, the performance of the clipping is much better. And there we can maybe achieve our even better results in terms of manual clipping rates, one of the metrics that was set up in the beginning. There's also one point that we should remember and should take into account. It's the image size that is correlated with the post-processing time. So for really big images or heavy images with high resolution, we can have sometimes even longer post-processing times than the time of the inference. So it's really something that we want to avoid. Also, we want to kind of stabilize our SLA. So what we do here, we decide to implement also preliminary resize if the image that comes through is above 4K or is bigger than 10 megabytes. In this case, we can more or less like limit the size of images that go through the service and guarantee that the latency will be in the reasonable interval. So coming down to the launch and the results, I want also to highlight several engineering practices that are kind of common practices across the stack. And some of them are not used in project, but are really valuable, so I want to highlight them as well. So starting from RFC, request for comment, it's the document where we describe the architectures that we want to propose. And then when it's done, we ask for a comment our senior colleagues. They are able to assess the solutions that we propose, and they can advise us on how we can optimize it. Sometimes it helps to avoid some iterations in terms of development, so we start from the best solution from the very beginning. We also use CI/CD, so we use semantic release for versioning. We deploy with Jenkins, and we also log and monitor our new services. For logging, we use Kibana for service level logs, also a source with there. And in this project, we have our custom algo metrics that we also store on a suite to analyze further and maybe improve our service depending on the results. Monitoring and alerting is done for infrastructure also with common practice Grafana. And service level monitoring and alerting for done with Datadog. So Datadog was really helpful on the load testing step to achieve better modification and fine-tuning of our setup, but it also is useful on the day-to-day basis during soft launch and during like real serving in production, because we can get some alerting on Slack in case there is, for example, higher traffic than usual, or there is a timeout on service or something. And last but not the least, incident runbook. It's kind of a good practice, and it's really helpful, for example, in the beginning of the project, to roll back to some safe solution. For us, as we've seen before, there is a way to stabilize our service and to bring down latency even further. It's TTA. So what we've done here, we described the incident runbook, among other techniques, also bringing the latency down through these other setups. So basically, we have another GitHub branch where we have serving through Torch and without GT. So it's kind of a stable solution. There are no surprise there. It is a little bit less performing in terms of MCR, but it's something that can help us to recover faster and make our service more stable. Today we are going through the soft rollout phase. What we call soft rollout is opening small portions of traffic one by one for the service. We decided to go with categories and choosing in the beginning some categories of products that are quite rare to hear online. So, for example, kids' clothes, it's something that is not really often get into deposit. We can also have some different products in this category, meaning that, for example, we can test at once how our model performs on shoes, accessories, clothing, and so on. So it's kind of a small run first, testing, and then we bring up the volume, adding a big categories such as bags and clothing. Today we are at around 5% of volume, counting from all deposits, and here are the results that we achieved up to date. So in terms of manual keeping rate, we managed to bring it down by 3%. That's a huge achievement because in the beginning we just had a setting where we wanted to benchmark it to have the same level. So we checked here. Average time to process is the latency per request. So unfortunately it was higher, but it was a conscious solution, conscious decisions that we took. It was a trade-off in favor of MCR level. Average time to publish, it's all the times that I spent on automatic clicking with our service and on manual check and manual clicking. So if we achieve better results in terms of manual clicking and manual check, we have less products that spend several hours in manual manipulations. So overall, the time goes down. So with current setup today, with 5% of traffic, we have cut it by 2 in average. As well as not the least, the cost that is really important and really impactful for the company. One of our main objectives today with 5% volume, we have cut costs by we have it down by 1% almost, and we expect to have for 1% of traffic, 100% of traffic. Sorry, we expect the gain of 17%. That's really interesting, and also we discovered several cases such as types of rejection of images that can be boosted higher. So we are really motivated to go further in terms of soft rollout and looking forward for the next phase. This will be the end of the journey for background removal with the Star Collective. So I just want to thank you all for listening and also invite you to follow us on LinkedIn, go to the channel and Medium, our tech blog on Medium. Thank you.
Processed before by the other solution?
Yes and no. It was processed before by another solution, but it was not AI solution. It was manual solution. So it's basically the labels that are given by people. So we are 100% sure that it is.
Another question about the data. Do you update your data set periodically or is it like a static one? And same thing about the model. Do you change your models? Because there are new models coming up with transformers and all. So maybe some new models would be job or something?
Thanks for the question. So to address the first part, background removal task is a type of task where we don't really have a big concept drift, so we don't really need to rerun it very often. Concept drift is something that is more related to, for example, categories or features extraction from images. So depending on the time of the year, for example, people wear more warm clothes or this kind of stuff. For text, it also may be the case, but not for background, because background is good background, whatever is the condition around. So we don't plan to retrain it quite often. However, to address the second part of your question, it's really interesting to follow the new trends and new models that come up. So it's definitely going to be one of our next steps to have a review of what's available in terms of new models. And this is why also we keep track of algometrics to use them to improve our service. So to combine all this information that we already know from production and coming from new discoveries.
Also questions from, I just asked the question from online, from Soraya. She's asking, Is this data set used for training publicly available? And she also congratulates you.
It's a great question. Unfortunately, this dataset is not publicly available. It's property of the Star Collective as soon as we pay for those images. So, yeah, it's not.
Another question on the platform. From what you can pictures like from regular users of your Excel? Because if it's from your, it's kind of the job of the photographers to give good images.
Yes, indeed.
Processing. That's my
Yes, that's a great question. So most of the e-commerce platforms where you can sell your goods, your items, it's mostly done for your comfort in the way that you make photos of your products and then you fill the form. So if we need to go through an additional photographer, it's possible as well, but it will take longer for you to sell your items. So most of the experiences that we have, these are the experiences with real users' photos. So they do it on their smartphones, and depending on the type of smartphone, recently we had really big increase in terms of resolution and in terms of the size of the image. It's because of this discrepancy between the types of photographs and the type of conditions where they are taken. It's a good question. Unfortunately, I'm not able to address it right now because I was working mostly on that engineering side. I invited to approach a lab with a network instructor for this question, or else you can wait for a week and find out the response or type of comment.
Other questions?
That's a portion of your logs that was, so to speak, dumped into this suite.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, how do you then make sense of that bit of logs? Do you have any method to extract some insights?
Yeah, basically the idea behind will be to put them into a data storage, so and make them available for data analysis. So you combine it with product IDs, and you figure out what features of the product are correlated with the fact that confidence ratio, for example, probability of the prediction of the background of these pictures is better than on the others.
Any other questions?
How did you go about doing the infra optimization part? Because it sounds very similar to like hyperparameter optimization for a model. Was it finger in the air? Then, like for example, the number of nodes that you got the CPU and memory requests that you or like did you just define like a matrix that you have?
It was almost everything that you listed except hyperparameters optimization that was done and fixed on the beginning of the stage, and then we optimized on web service architecture, optimized on infrastructure architecture, and a little bit on some other factors like compilation, but we didn't really enter the training process to optimize the training.
So if you have any other questions, you can find us here during the networking session. So let's give her another round of applause. And just a quick note that the building will close at 9:30, right? So
Yes. Recently we participated as pilot in coming to PeterCon, and I have some goodies with me, some glass t-shirts. If you are interested to have some glass t-shirt, please come and see if it fits you and take some. So.
Can I just say the networking session will not be here? It will be, it will follow us. We'll take it across the places.
Is it